What is up, everybody? Back again. Packers finally played a real game. I couldn't be more excited. Last night was great just to see the Packers run out onto the field against the San Francisco 49ers and actually play football for the first time since we saw them lose to the same 49ers team back in, January. So, pretty awesome that they were back out there. We got to see Jordan Love start for the first time this season, or this preseason. So I was looking for a lot of the individual battles throughout the game that I wanted to see guys kind of step up and take that next little step. A lot of times the team as a whole has issues, unifying and kind of with communication on the offensive line, defense on the back end with the corners and safeties. There's a lot of different pieces that go along with a successful team. And so a lot of that stuff during preseason, a lot of guys getting subbed in and out, a lot of different packages, all kinds of different looks, and sometimes it's kind of hard to get a read on the team as a whole. But that's why I watch the individual battles and different guys that I was hoping to see take that step this year. It's just we have a lot of young pieces, rookies, new free agents, pieces that just we're trying to fit in different areas. So watching how the offensive line performed was my biggest concern. Jordan Love was out there, obviously, so it's a little bit different than having Rodgers back there calling protections and everything. But the offensive line is going to be basically the centerpiece of everything that happens with this Packers offense. If we can't get the offensive line right, then there's not really going to be a running game. Rodgers won't have time to throw, all those things. So what I was watching for mostly was how that offensive line kind of uniformed, how they protected on pass plays, and how they would come together on running plays and block and do some of those double team blocks that the Packers are so famous for using, and that zone blocking scheme or the zone running scheme. I saw a lot of good play from that first starting offensive lineman. You had Yash at the left tackle. He played well. John Runyan Jr., I really liked what I saw out of him. He seems like he's taken that next step. He's really starting to come along with his gameplay. He had a really nice run, or a run block on a Tyler Goodson run. Tyler Goodson looked like he is going to be running back 3. I think he's a guy that can be explosive in the run game and in the pass game. Until Kylan Hill gets back, they're very similar players in the aspect that they're a little undersized. They're good at running routes. They can run the ball as well. So for him to come in and do so well, Goodson, it was very impressive. He had a couple of nice runs last night. He really stepped up. Josh Myers and John Runyan Jr. on a combo block were able to clear some space to open up for Tyler Goodson. I think I saw Patrick Taylor out there last night. He didn't do a whole lot, but I think he was suited up. I saw B.J. Baylor on a pass play where he just got behind the defense. It was Danny Etling who threw it on this one, and he dropped a dime on just right past the defender, 68 yards to B.J. Baylor. And if Baylor was faster, he would have been gone. He had the whole defense beat. He was, 10 steps ahead of the closest guy as he kind of broke away from the guy that was covering him. And then as he got down the field, he got caught from behind. But it was still a very impressive play by a guy who, is fighting to make the team. Probably will not be on the squad at the end of the season, but it was awesome to see him do something in this game. Very excited to see one of these running backs step up and kind of take that role. Obviously, we have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon as our 1 and 2, so they won't get a lot of playing time. But if any time there is a need for a running back 3 or 4, it'll be nice to have guys that we trust back there to play. And so the offense was what I was watching the most. It was tough because Jordan Love looked really, really good, and Matt LaFleur even will say this. He looked great when he looked great. Some of the bad boneheaded plays were either not his fault or really plays that he can learn from. He right away early on in the game, 4th and 3 from about the 34-yard line. They had just ran a few plays. Jordan Love was not having issues getting the ball down the field. He was moving the ball nicely. It was really kind of a nice thing to see him. You could see the development was there. You could see the things that he needed to work on. He has worked on, and obviously there's still more to work on. But on this 4th and 3, he was doing really good things with his eyes. Jordan Love was trying to get the defense to play off or do what he wanted them to do, and he threw a dime right to Romeo Doubs, and everybody's been talking about Doubs all training camp. And finally, in a game setting where people all over the country are watching, he showed up like he has been in training camp, and he, 34-yard touchdown catch from Jordan Love to Romeo Doubs, something I think we're going to hear a lot about in the future. But it was just great to see. Romeo Doubs really stepped up, made a big play. And that's all you want to see from your young guys. You know they're going to make mistakes. You know they're going to have times where it's a mental lapse or they just make the wrong read, things of that nature. Those are all rookie-type mistakes, and you expect that. Later on in the game, after Love threw his first touchdown, he ended up throwing 3 interceptions. One went through the hands of Winfrey dropped one, then Doubs dropped one that was basically took right out of his hands, and then another one where Winfrey, should have been picked, where he bounced it up, and then he caught it over some guys, which was an amazing catch. And then later on, a similar play where Love kind of forced it, but LaFleur said that two of the receivers were running kind of the same route, and they were in basically the same spot, and that's kind of what forced the interception. So in LaFleur's eyes, all 3 of these interceptions weren't really Jordan Love's fault, although they, go on his stat sheet. It's still kind of like he did a lot of nice things. He was very impressive when it came to decision-making and kind of reading off of the defense and using his eyes, and a lot of his throws were confident and on the money, and he just looked really good. He played the whole first half. Obviously, the Packers, they did lose, but going into halftime, they made the score 17-14, and it was really exciting to see kind of how Love was able to bounce back from some of the issues he had with the interceptions and really start to, kind of move the ball. Danny Davis is a guy that on offense, he's been working with Love and working with Etling, and obviously he's a Badger guy, so I've always been kind of supportive of him. But he made a really awesome adjustment on a catch for a touchdown from a good throw from Love. It was just a really, really nice catch and kind of squirted by some guys to get into the end zone. Really impressive play by him. He's probably like the 9th or 10th receiver on this roster right now, but if he keeps making plays like that, he's likely going to have a job or a spot on the practice squad. I don't see him making the 53, but it'll be interesting to see how all these young guys that are trying to make the squad progress. Obviously, like I said, Juwan Winfrey and Tyler Goodson are both guys who weren't on the squad last year. Obviously, Winfrey was kind of on the practice squad, on and off the team, and Goodson's a rookie. But both guys were making plays. Winfrey looks like he belongs. I really liked what I saw out of him last night. He's a guy that's been in the system with the Packers for a few years. He actually was a 6th-round pick, I think, out of from the Broncos in like 2018 or 19. And after he got let go, the Packers have had him since. And he's just kind of been on the cusp the entire last 3 seasons of making it to on the team. With Rodgers' blessing this year, he said 88 and 87 are making plays. I think that all but solidified Winfrey's spot on this roster, which means that there's question marks when it comes to Watkins and other receivers. But with that being said, Danny Davis looks like he can play in this league. He looks like a guy that has what it takes to actually make an impact, but he's still so raw and young and just has to, a little more progression. But so far, I like what I see out of the young guy out of Wisconsin. Pretty cool. Trey Lance was in early in the game. I don't. I got a lot of flack on Twitter from people, 49ers fans, talking about how the 49ers have owned the Packers and all this since 2012, and I get all that. But the Packers have won 2 Super Bowls since the 49ers have won their last one. Every time the 49ers beat the Packers in the playoffs and send us home packing like they did last year, they go on to do absolutely nothing after that. I know they made it to the Super Bowl against the Ravens back in the day, but they lost. I know the power went out and all that, but they still lost, and they haven't won a Super Bowl since. I know they went against the Chiefs, and they lost. So I don't really care about if they beat the Packers. They don't go on to be the champions, so they're just as big of a loser in that aspect as the Packers were, so I don't understand where that comes from. But it was still exciting to see how Trey Lance would come out and play. He was pretty much the only starter out on the field. I know Quay Walker for the Packers was in the middle, at the middle linebacker's position, calling the signals for the defense of the Packers. So you got a rookie middle linebacker calling the defense against, the quarterback who they're going to say is going to be a starter. I know that he had a big, long, deep bomb to their speedster, Danny Gray. Danny Gray's, super fast, and we had a safety that we signed like 3 days ago on the back end. I think Dallin Levitt was back there. He got burned a few times, and there's just, to me it wasn't as impressive as all these 49ers fans would like you to believe. For me, it was more like, okay, well, he made a good play. He's probably the best guy out on the field, and, it was kind of a bad defense, bad read, all those things. To me, it wasn't enough to be like, okay, this guy's MVP, this guy's the next it thing. I still need a lot more out of Trey Lance before I start projecting him into the, categories of like Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and stuff like that. So, but anyway, the defense of the Packers is kind of the bright spot. I know they had that one big deep pass from Trey Lance, but otherwise, Casey Nixon was out there making nice tackles. Like I said, Quay Walker really was calling all the defensive signals, and that's super impressive for a rookie. Isaiah McDuffie, who had some nice run stops, and he had a tackle for a loss, which was, that's big. When you have a guy who is kind of like that fourth middle linebacker, you want to see him make plays on the defense and hope that he can contribute on special teams. That's kind of where his niche will be, and we'll see how that goes. Rico Gafford had a really good coverage on a third down play that sent them to fourth down, sent the 49ers to fourth down. So Rico's a guy with that 4.22 speed, I think they even said. Like, that's insanity speed. Like, that's crazy. I know he played corner and then went to receiver, and then now he's back to corner. But he's a guy that I could sneak onto the roster on special teams as either a kickoff returner or punt returner or something along those lines. Rico Gafford, a guy that I didn't think would make the team last year, but kind of stuck around and has been making plays. So I look for him to at least be a guy on the bubble towards the end of that last preseason game. These next 2 preseason games, the one against the Saints next week Thursday and the one the following week Thursday against the Chiefs, will be huge in determining who makes this final Packers squad. Something else to note, Jordan Love, his scrambling ability. I know he's 6'4" with a big arm. I know that he's young, obviously younger than Rodgers. Rodgers came in very athletic with a nice arm, but Love being 6'4" with probably even a stronger arm when it comes to like arm talent, throwing the ball deep wise. Rodgers is the best thrower of the football I've ever seen when it comes to just throwing off a different platform, throwing it, the spin on the ball, all that stuff. But for a guy like Love who can learn from him and has more maybe the physical tools, I think he can really translate. To see him being able to scramble, run, make some nice choices when it comes to throwing the ball or tucking it and running it. Just a lot of growth from Love, and I really liked what I saw. Just promising. I know LaFleur said that he saw a lot of good development. There's obviously a lot to learn from, a lot to work on, and a lot that he can improve on in his game. But for the first game in a while, after last year where he kind of got thrown into the mix, I think it was a really good start. I look for him to make another leap against the Saints and then hopefully against the Chiefs. I don't know if Rodgers will be playing at all this preseason. He said he doesn't feel like one series will benefit him in any way. If they do play, we should play a whole half or something like that, is what Rodgers said. So we'll see how that all progresses later on in preseason. I think they want to see more of these young guys. I think they kind of know what Rodgers can do and some of these other vets can do, so won't be as big of an issue. So going into halftime, the Packers had that touchdown from Danny Davis. They made the score 14-17. And then I thought Love would come out to start the third quarter because he kind of had some issues throughout the game, just kind of, with the interceptions. I know they weren't his fault, really, but still, count against your stats. And I thought they would just give him one more chance, but instead, Danny Etling came out, started the third quarter and the whole fourth quarter. And he played well. I liked what I saw from Danny Etling. Like I said, he had that super long. This was in the third quarter. That super long throw to B.J. Baylor, where he ran down the sideline and almost scored. And would have scored if he was just a little bit faster. But that was just super exciting. Seeing the running back who's kind of on the bubble, who's in that competition with Goodson, to see him kind of make a play. But guys who I really was impressed with in this second half. The second half of preseason games, when you've got the guys who are 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th down the roster on the depth chart, I like just seeing the individual battles, what guys can do, and see if they can bring a piece to the Packers team that we might not have, or a guy that can fit a certain role, which is really important. If a guy can fit a certain role that other guys can't play or fit, if he's not good in other areas, he might be able to make the team because he can excel in certain things that other guys cannot. For instance, Tariq Carpenter is the 7th round free safety linebacker hybrid out of Georgia Tech. He's kind of a bigger guy, 6'3", 240 with some speed, but not really a coverage ability. I saw him make a really nice tackle. Just, it's stuff like that where you have a guy who is young and raw, and you just want to see him make the right play. And when he does, you're just like, okay, perfect. It's just how it goes. Other guys that really stepped up, Keandre Thomas had a lot of nice coverage, a lot of nice plays throughout the game. He's a guy who's way down on the depth chart when it comes to cornerbacks and defensive backs and on that back end. But on the third down play, he had a great pass breakup. The receiver even had the hands on the ball. And Keandre Thomas, all the way through the process of the catch, kept fighting for it and forced a breakup on the third down and forced the 49ers to punt, which is all you can ask. Pretty big play for him. And then Chris Slayton. I see Slayton number 60, and I was like, did TJ Slayton change his number? But he did. It's Chris Slayton, and this guy has really showed up. I saw Aaron Nagler talk about, it's nice to see some depth on the Packers defensive line for once. Chris Slayton burst through the line on a bad snap and forced a sack, on a it was to make a 3rd and 17. So that's what you want on a second down play where it's the offense is trying to move the ball. Their first down didn't go great, but they're still like 2nd and manageable, 2nd and 8 or so. And then you have a guy like Slayton who just, even if the quarterback didn't fumble the snap, kind of have a missed snap, Slayton was still in there. I think he would have got the sack anyway. It would have been a little bit more difficult, but he blew through that line so fast. It was really impressive. Another guy who I've been talking about is Kingsley Enagbare. He wants to go by JJ Enagbare. I don't want to confuse people by saying JJ. But Enagbare also had a sack on a weird play in this game. But to me, it just shows that he's starting to kind of progress. He's in the right spot at the right time. And he looked very relentless. On some of these pass rush downs, he was just bull rushing his guy, trying to do everything he can. And on a play where the quarterback was rolling out to the right, he came from the far right or left and was coming all the way around. And he almost got there, but he forced a tough throw. And that's all you want to see out of your young guys, just a little bit of progression. That's it, So big play from him. Obviously, he's going up against backups and second backups and like the backup to the backup to the backup. But he's still NFL players. You still want to see him do well. It's just like anytime you see a guy go up against lesser talent, you just want to see him dominate that lesser talent because he is such a better player. You don't want to see him have any issues with that at all because he should be far ahead of them in physicality and just athletic ability and just pure physical football talent. So to see him get a sack in his first NFL action is huge. Obviously, the same thing with Chris Slayton, and a lot of just little pieces that I really like to see. So part of the three phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. We couldn't have more issues when it comes to special teams. If Crosby doesn't come back, and I know everybody isn't super fond of Crosby, but this Burkic guy is not. Gabe Burkic is not the deal. He shanked that kick. It was like a 35-yarder, 40-yarder. He shanked it so far left that they thought it was blocked or tipped or like they didn't know what happened. And literally, he just shanked it that bad. And he kicked it farther left than he did straight. So, which I don't understand it. For you golfers out there, you could probably explain the shank or the slice to me a little bit better. I do play golf, but all mine are hole-in-one, so I don't have to deal with that. But to see him be that far off was, after being so effective in college, really is demoralizing, especially, Crosby had a down year last year. So if he's our best option, you just hope that he can rebound and kind of get in that old form. Otherwise, if we're counting on Gabe Burkic to make the game winner at the end of the game against whoever, and he shanks it that bad, it's just going to be a laughingstock situation. So I hope the Packers can work that out. Otherwise, punting, they looked okay, I still think we should have got Matt Ariza, the San Diego State punter, who punted an 82-yarder today in his first preseason action. If you don't know who that is, YouTube him. He is a guy that I really pushed for the Packers to draft, but no one thought a punter was a big deal. But now he's playing for the Bills, and they're going to see what kind of weapon he can be, especially up there in Buffalo. This guy's got a leg, and it is very impressive. So, anyway, our punting was okay. Jack Coco was snapping well. No issues, really. Not a lot of issues on coverage and things like that. No real major breakdowns. But the most impressive thing of the evening when it came to special teams was Amari Rodgers' 51-yard kickoff return. He did not score, obviously, but it was just an explosive play. He's starting to look like the reason why the Packers drafted him in the third round out of Clemson. Just a fast, physical, aggressive runner. Gets upfield. Last year it was too much side to side, trying to outrun people sideways. And in the NFL, this isn't college or high school. You're not going to do that. You got to get up the seam, up the crease, past the guys so they're so far behind you that they can't get the angle on you. If you're trying to run away from them, there's just too many guys too fast with too many angles that you're screwed unless you're like Devin Hester or Dion. But Amari's neither of those guys, so he needed to get up the field and get what he could instead of shaking bacon side to side and not gaining anything or losing yards. So to see him bust one out on a kickoff and then even be a little more effective on punts, you just can see that he's getting upfield and not dancing around, which is just going to be really beneficial. If he can gain us any more yards than he did last year, that's going to be better for the Packers overall. Obviously, if you're having a kickoff, unless it's the start of the game or at halftime, it's usually because the other team scored. So if you're starting from the 20 now, that's tough. If you have a guy back there that can set you up at the 50, at the 40, return a kick for a touchdown, maybe once, if they could ever do that, that would be pretty amazing. But I haven't seen the Packers really have a lot of special team success in a few years, so seeing Amari Rodgers break that one is promising. It looks like they are kind of figuring it out. There's a whole new energy with Rich Bisaccia in at special teams coordinator. He's a guy that's brought a whole new level of intensity, whole new level of what he expects. And, he brought Casey Nixon and Dallin Levitt, who actually went out last night with an injury. Looked like his arm, I think. So we will watch that. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of guys that got injured last night. I know Sean Ryan went down, the offensive guard. He had a play where he kind of got up slow, but it looks like he will be okay. Jake Hansen played okay, another offensive line guy. He had a holding call last night, but otherwise, the most notable names that I came up with for last night's game, would be Jonathan Garvin on the defense. Funny. And sorry guys. And Romeo Doubs on the Romeo Doubs on the offense. Obviously, Doubs had the drop, but he also had the big touchdown. But Garvin was just all over the field. He had some nice pressures early on. He had some nice run stops. With Ladarius Hamilton kind of being hurt right now, I do not think that Hamilton's got that inside track. Garvin looks like he's kind of stepped up. He had a great week in practice, and he really is starting to show that he could probably be that third outside linebacker. Just nice to see guys that are competing for that spot instead of having a guy that's kind of just wins it by default. So it'll be really interesting to see how that progresses the next couple of weeks. With a guy, like I said, we've got Tipa Goliath had a nice game, but I think he kind of got shaken up last night too. But then JJ and Agbar, you've got Jonathan Garvin, like I said. So there's guys that are starting to come along and starting to play and prove that they can do something. So we will see how that all translates in the next few games. So we were down. I think it was like 21-17 or something, and we scored. Oh, so it was 17-14, and we scored. But they must have had 24. I don't think we ever took the lead. But anyway, so on a really, really nice play, it was Danny Etling at quarterback. He threw it out to the flat to Amari Rodgers, who again, I'm just want to see more out of him. It's kind of been all last year with 4 catches, and then this year with all this talk and hype about him, but me not seeing a whole lot in camp or early on in the preseason game. Some of that, the special team stuff is great. Don't get me wrong, it's great. But he's a receiver. You want to see him do what he's supposed to do. And on the play with Danny Etling, 22-yard catch and run from Amari Rodgers. He shaked and baked and made 2 guys miss and got down the sidelines. A little bowling ball action and showed you why the Packers drafted them where they did. It was super impressive for the touchdown. Obviously, the Packers did not win. They lost 28-21, but there was a lot of good things that the Packers did. Like I said, good things from Love, the young running backs. The offensive line did okay. The defensive line looks like it's going to have some depth for once. Having Quay Walker call plays in the middle is huge. That back end looks like it's going to be really good. These young guys, with some communication issues early on, but that's to be expected. But all in all, the Packers looked great last night. It was just super fun to watch them come out and play again. Obviously, it's been like 6 months. The last time we saw them, it was really depressing. And still working on getting over that, talking to a therapist weekly about it. No, I'm just kidding. But, it was awesome to see the Packers get back out there. They will be back on Thursday against the Saints at home in Green Bay. So don't forget to watch. I will have an updated video on what to expect then. And thank you guys for watching. Peace out. See you in the next one.